On a fog-laden Tuesday morning in October, groundskeeper Marcus Chun arrived at Riverside Manor expecting another routine day of maintenance. The historic estate, built in 1892, had been converted into luxury apartments 3 years prior. But as Marcus approached the ornate fountain in the courtyard, something caught his eye. A single red high-heel shoe, partially submerged in the murky water. It belonged to Dr. Elena Vasquez, a prominent psychiatrist who hadn't been seen in 4 days. What Marcus discovered next would transform a missing person case into something far more sinister, unraveling secrets that the manor's elegant facade had concealed for decades. Before you start, please leave a comment and subscribe to encourage us, Dr. Elena Vasquez was no ordinary tenant. At 42, she had built a reputation treating high-profile clients, including politicians and celebrities. Her penthouse apartment overlooking the river was her sanctuary, filled with rare books and abstract art. Elena was methodical, predictable in her routines. She jogged every morning at 6, bought coffee from the same cafe, and never missed her Thursday evening violin lessons. When she failed to show up for 3 consecutive patient appointments, her secretary knew something was terribly wrong. Elena's calendar was her Bible, and abandoning her patients was unthinkable. The last person to see her alive was the night security guard, who remembered her receiving a visitor around 11 p.m. on Saturday. Detective Sarah Morrison had investigated hundreds of crime scenes, but Elena's apartment unsettled her immediately. Nothing appeared disturbed, no signs of struggle, no broken glass, no overturned furniture. Yet something felt profoundly wrong. Elena's bed was made with military precision, her coffee cup sat half-empty on the kitchen counter, and her laptop remained open to patient files. Most disturbing was the bathroom mirror, where someone had written "Secrets have consequences" in red lipstick. The message wasn't there when the building manager performed a wellness check 2 days earlier. Someone had returned to the apartment, but the security cameras showed no unusual activity. How could someone enter and leave without being detected? Riverside Manor prided itself on state-of-the-art security, with cameras monitoring every entrance, hallway, and common area. But when detectives requested footage from the weekend Elena disappeared, they discovered a convenient malfunction. The entire system had gone offline for exactly 4 hours on Saturday night, from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. Building manager Robert Chin claimed it was a scheduled maintenance update, but no work orders existed. The backup generator had also mysteriously failed during the same window. When pressed for details, Robert became defensive, insisting the timing was coincidental. His nervous fidgeting and reluctance to make eye contact suggested otherwise. 27 years managing the property, and he'd never seen a simultaneous system failure like this one. Dr. Michael Torres had a motive as old as time itself, a bitter divorce that had stripped him of everything he thought he deserved. Once a successful surgeon, Michael's career imploded after Elena exposed his addiction to prescription painkillers during their custody battle. She documented his erratic behavior, his disappearing acts, and his inappropriate relationships with nurses. The divorce settlement awarded Elena their vacation home, the art collection, and primary custody of their teenage daughter. Michael's resentment festered for 3 years, manifesting in threatening emails, unexpected visits to her workplace, and violations of the restraining order. His alibi for Saturday night was suspiciously vague, alone at home, watching Netflix, with no witnesses to corroborate his story. Elena specialized in treating trauma victims, but her client list included individuals with dark histories. Patient confidentiality laws prevented police from accessing her files initially, but Elena's secretary hinted at recent troubles. One patient, known only as Subject 47 in Elena's coded notes, had been making aggressive advances and refusing to accept the professional boundaries. Elena had confided to her sister about feeling unsafe, mentioning a client who knew too much about her personal life. Phone records revealed Elena had called her attorney the day before she disappeared, scheduling an urgent meeting about client safety protocols. The attorney confirmed Elena seemed frightened, mentioning someone who had discovered where she lived and was crossing lines that shouldn't be crossed. Mrs. Catherine Walsh lived directly below Elena's penthouse and had developed an intimate knowledge of her neighbor's habits through the thin walls. On Saturday night, Catherine heard Elena's heels clicking across the hardwood floors around 11 p.m., followed by the sound of her apartment door opening. What struck Catherine as odd was hearing Elena's voice. She was speaking to someone, but the conversation was hushed, almost secretive. Around midnight, Catherine heard what sounded like furniture being moved, then complete silence. She assumed Elena had gone to bed, but now realized the silence was too absolute. Elena always played soft classical music while reading before sleep. The absence of this routine, Catherine later told police, should have been her first warning that something was terribly wrong that night, when Elena's shoe was discovered in the manor's fountain. Investigators immediately focused on the property's proximity to the Columbia River. The estate's backyard featured a private dock where residents could moor small boats or simply enjoy waterfront views. Search and rescue teams deployed sonar equipment, diving crews, and cadaver dogs along a 2-mile stretch of riverbank. The current was particularly strong that October due to recent rainfall, which could have carried evidence far downstream. After 3 days of intensive searching, divers found Elena's purse wedged between rocks near the old shipping pier, but it contained nothing useful: no wallet, no phone, no identification. The discovery raised more questions than answers. If Elena had fallen or been pushed into the river, why was her purse in a completely different location? James Mitchell had worked maintenance at Riverside Manor for 8 years, with access to every apartment, every utility room, and every security system component. Residents barely noticed him as he moved through the building, fixing leaky faucets and changing air filters. But James noticed everything about them, especially the attractive women who lived alone. Police discovered his personal computer contained hundreds of unauthorized photographs taken inside residents' apartments, including intimate images of Elena getting dressed, sleeping, and showering. James had installed hidden cameras in air vents and behind mirrors throughout the building. His obsession with Elena was particularly disturbing. He documented her daily routines, her visitors, even her private phone conversations. When confronted, James insisted he was protecting the residents, but his journal entries revealed fantasies about teaching Elena a lesson about privacy. Elena's financial records revealed she was worth considerably more than anyone realized. Beyond her successful practice, she had inherited a substantial trust fund from her grandmother and owned valuable real estate in 3 states. Her will, updated just 2 months before her disappearance, left everything to her teenage daughter with Michael Torres as trustee until the child turned 25. This arrangement would give Michael control over nearly $2 million for the next 7 years. Bank records showed Michael was drowning in debt, unpaid taxes, gambling losses, and mounting legal fees from various malpractice suits. His medical license had been suspended and creditors were threatening foreclosure on his apartment. Elena's death would solve all his financial problems while giving him leverage over their daughter. The timing of the will change seemed almost prophetic, as if Elena sensed danger approaching. Riverside Manor's elegant facade concealed a troubling past that locals preferred to forget. Built by railroad baron Harrison Blackwood in 1892, the mansion was the site of multiple mysterious deaths over the decades. Blackwood's wife allegedly threw herself from the tower window in 1895. Though some historians suspect murder. During the 1920s, 3 servants died under suspicious circumstances within a single year. When the building was converted to apartments, construction workers discovered a sealed room in the basement containing Victorian-era medical instruments and what appeared to be restraints. The developer quickly covered up the discovery, but rumors persisted among residents about strange noises at night, cold spots in certain apartments, and unexplained electrical malfunctions. Elena had mentioned to friends that her apartment felt watched, and she'd requested multiple lock changes during her tenancy. Elena's sister Maria received a disturbing text message 3 days after the disappearance, sent from Elena's phone at 3:17 a.m. The message read, "The truth is buried where Harrison's wife fell. Look beneath the roses." Elena's phone had been missing since her disappearance, and the message's location data showed it was sent from inside Riverside Manor. Maria immediately contacted police, who discovered a small rose garden directly below the tower window where Mrs. Blackwood had allegedly jumped in 1895. Using ground-penetrating radar, investigators found disturbed soil and what appeared to be a recently dug cavity. When they excavated the area, they discovered Elena's missing jewelry and her prescription glasses, but no body. Someone was playing a cruel game, using Elena's disappearance to reference the building's historical tragedies. The question remained, who had access to Elena's phone, and why were they leading police on this macabre treasure hunt? A phone call to the police tip line changed everything. The caller, using a voice-altering device, claimed to have witnessed Elena's murder and provided specific details that hadn't been released to the public. The caller knew about the lipstick message on the bathroom mirror, the exact time the security cameras went offline, and the location where Elena's purse would be found. Most chilling was the caller's assertion that Elena was still alive when she was thrown into the river but unconscious from a head injury. The call was traced to a payphone outside a convenience store 12 miles from Riverside Manor, but security footage showed someone wearing a hooded jacket and deliberately avoiding the camera's view. The caller promised to provide more information if police stopped investigating certain residents of the building. When detectives refused to negotiate, the mysterious informant went silent, leaving them with tantalizing clues but no clear direction. 16-year-old Sofia Torres had been staying with her grandmother during her mother's disappearance, but she possessed crucial information about Elena's final days. Sofia revealed that her mother had been receiving threatening letters at home, not at her office as previously believed. The letters, which Elena had hidden in her bedroom safe, contained detailed knowledge about Elena's daily routines and included photographs taken from inside her apartment. Even more disturbing, the letters referenced Sofia by name and knew details about her school schedule and extracurricular activities. Elena had been terrified that her stalker would target Sofia next. She'd arranged for Sofia to stay with her grandmother indefinitely and had been planning to relocate to another state. Sofia's testimony suggested Elena wasn't randomly targeted. Someone had been methodically planning her disappearance for months, using her maternal instincts as psychological warfare. 3 weeks after Elena's disappearance, forensic analysis of her apartment revealed microscopic evidence that had been missed during the initial investigation. Luminol testing exposed traces of blood in the bathroom, despite the room appearing spotless to the naked eye. The blood pattern suggested someone had been injured near the sink, and DNA analysis confirmed it belonged to Elena. More significantly, investigators found traces of chloroform on Elena's pillowcase and carpet fibers under her fingernails that didn't match anything in her apartment. The chloroform suggested premeditation. Someone had come prepared to incapacitate her. The foreign carpet fibers were eventually matched to the maintenance rooms in Riverside Manor's basement. These discoveries shifted the investigation's focus from a possible suicide or accidental drowning to a carefully planned abduction. Someone had rendered Elena unconscious in her own home, then transported her elsewhere before returning to stage the scene. Just as the investigation seemed to be gaining momentum, another resident of Riverside Manor disappeared. Rachel Kim, a 28-year-old graphic designer who lived on the 3rd floor, vanished under eerily similar circumstances. Her apartment showed no signs of struggle, but investigators found the same red lipstick message on her bathroom mirror. Secrets have consequences. Rachel had been one of Elena's few friends in the building, and they often had coffee together on Sunday mornings. Security cameras captured Rachel entering her apartment after a Friday evening dinner with friends, but she was never seen leaving. Unlike Elena's case, Rachel's disappearance triggered an immediate evacuation of the building and a floor-by-floor search. The pattern was becoming clear. Someone was systematically targeting women who lived alone in Riverside Manor. The killer was either another resident with intimate knowledge of their routines or someone with unlimited access to the building. Investigation into James Mitchell's computer revealed connections to a disturbing underground network of voyeurs who shared surveillance footage and personal information about unsuspecting women. The network, operating through encrypted forums, had hundreds of members across the country who traded images and videos obtained through hidden cameras in apartments, offices, and public spaces. Elena and Rachel had both been featured extensively in this digital marketplace, with their daily routines documented and sold to the highest bidders. Some forum members had expressed particular interest in meeting Elena in person, and investigators found evidence of a bounty offered for her home address and work schedule. The network's existence suggested Elena's stalker might not be working alone, but part of a larger criminal organization that commodified women's privacy and safety. Several forum members lived within driving distance of Riverside Manor. Elena's life insurance policy raised additional red flags when investigators discovered it had been increased from $500,000 to $2 million just 6 months before her disappearance. The beneficiary was listed as her daughter Sofia, but Michael Torres would control the funds as trustee. The insurance company's investigator revealed that Michael had been inquiring about the policy's terms and payout procedures as recently as 2 weeks before Elena vanished. More suspicious was a separate accidental death policy that Michael had purchased on Elena's behalf without her knowledge, forging her signature on the application. The policy would pay out an additional $1 million if Elena died from drowning, exactly matching the circumstances investigators suspected. When confronted with the forged documents, Michael claimed Elena had asked him to handle her insurance matters during their divorce, but divorce records showed Elena had explicitly revoked his access to her financial affairs. After weeks of silence, a jogger who regularly ran along the river path finally contacted police with a crucial observation. Jennifer Lopez had been running past Riverside Manor around 2 a.m. on the night Elena disappeared when she saw a man loading something heavy into a boat at the private dock. The man was wearing dark clothing and appeared to be struggling with his cargo, which was wrapped in what looked like a blanket or tarp. Jennifer hadn't thought much of it at the time, assuming someone was moving furniture late at night to avoid disturbing neighbors. But when she saw news coverage of Elena's disappearance, she realized the timing was too coincidental to ignore. Jennifer's description of the man was vague due to the darkness and distance, but she was certain he was tall, broad-shouldered, and moved with familiarity around the dock, suggesting he had regular access to the marina facilities. Elena's cell phone records painted a disturbing picture of her final weeks. She had received dozens of calls from blocked numbers, most lasting only a few seconds, the signature of harassment campaigns designed to create anxiety and paranoia. Text messages revealed Elena had been in contact with a private investigator, discussing surveillance of someone she suspected was stalking her. The investigator confirmed Elena had hired him to identify who was taking photographs of her apartment from the building across the street. She'd also contacted a security company about installing additional locks and an alarm system, but the work was scheduled for the week after she disappeared. Most telling were Elena's final outgoing calls, 3 attempts to reach 911 that never connected, suggesting her phone had been jammed or disabled. Her last successful call was to her sister at 10:47 p.m., saying she heard someone in the hallway outside her apartment. Forensic analysis of the carpet fibers found under Elena's fingernails led investigators to a shocking discovery in Riverside Manor's basement. Hidden behind the maintenance room's water heater, they found a makeshift holding area equipped with restraints, soundproofing materials, and a cot stained with multiple types of biological evidence. DNA testing revealed genetic material from both Elena and Rachel, confirming they had been held in this location. The space also contained personal items from at least 3 other women, suggesting additional victims who hadn't been reported missing. Most disturbing was a journal documenting each woman's capture, describing their reactions to captivity and the perpetrator's psychological manipulation techniques. The handwriting analysis was inconclusive, but the level of detail suggested someone with medical or psychological training. The basement room had been carefully designed to muffle sound, explaining. As investigators pieced together evidence from the basement chamber, a larger conspiracy began to emerge. Security footage from neighboring businesses showed a pattern of late-night vehicle movements around Riverside Manor involving multiple cars and at least 3 different individuals. Phone records revealed communications between James Mitchell, building manager Robert Chin, and 2 other men with criminal histories involving assault and kidnapping. The group had been operating for over 2 years, using the manor's basement as a temporary holding facility before transporting victims to unknown locations. Elena's psychiatric expertise made her particularly valuable. They'd planned to keep her alive longer to study her psychological responses to captivity. Rachel's disappearance had been unplanned, triggered by her growing suspicions about strange noises from the basement. The conspiracy involved selling victims to human trafficking networks, with Elena commanding a high price due to her professional status and appearance. Acting on intelligence gathered from the basement crime scene, police coordinated simultaneous raids on 3 properties connected to the trafficking network. At a remote warehouse 40 miles from Riverside Manor, they discovered Elena and Rachel alive but severely traumatized. Both women had been drugged and psychologically tortured, but their medical training and mutual support had helped them survive. Elena had maintained detailed mental notes about their captors' identities, schedules, and conversations, providing crucial evidence for prosecution. Rachel had managed to partially disable the warehouse's security system using her technical skills, creating opportunities for escape that they were too weak to exploit. The warehouse contained evidence of at least 12 other victims who had passed through the facility over 2 years. Some had been released after ransoms were paid, others had been sold to international trafficking rings, and several remained unaccounted for in what investigators feared were murder cases. Within 48 hours of discovering the warehouse, police arrested 6 individuals connected to the trafficking operation. James Mitchell was found attempting to flee the country with fake identification documents and $50,000 in cash. Building manager Robert Chin had been living a double life, using his position to identify vulnerable tenants and gather intelligence about their routines. The operations leader was Dr. Marcus Webb, a disgraced psychiatrist who had lost his license for experimenting on patients without consent. Webb had recruited Mitchell and Chin by exploiting their financial desperation and psychological vulnerabilities. 2 additional accomplices were captured at different locations, including a former police officer who had been providing inside information about missing person investigations. Only Michael Torres remained at large, having disappeared from his apartment the same night Elena and Rachel were rescued. His involvement appeared to be primarily financial, laundering money from the trafficking operation through shell companies as prosecutors prepared for what would become the largest human trafficking trial in the state's history. Elena and Rachel faced the challenge of testifying about their ordeal. Both women had suffered severe psychological trauma but demonstrated remarkable resilience in their recovery. Elena's psychiatric training helped her process the experience analytically, while Rachel channeled her anger into advocacy for other trafficking victims. Their testimony would be crucial for convicting the conspirators, but defense attorneys were already planning to attack their credibility by claiming their memories were unreliable due to drug-induced impairment. The prosecution team assembled overwhelming physical evidence, DNA samples, financial records, surveillance footage, and recorded conversations between the defendants. They also located 3 other survivors from earlier trafficking operations who agreed to testify. The case would test the legal system's ability to deliver justice for crimes that challenged basic concepts of human dignity and safety. News of the trafficking ring's exposure attracted international media attention, transforming Riverside Manor into a symbol of hidden evil lurking behind respectable facades. True crime podcasters, documentary filmmakers, and investigative journalists descended on the small city, interviewing anyone connected to the case. Elena and Rachel became reluctant celebrities, with their rescue story inspiring a television movie and several book deals. However, the media attention also brought unwanted scrutiny and conspiracy theories that minimized their suffering. Some online commentators suggested the women had fabricated or exaggerated their experiences for financial gain. Death threats from supporters of the defendants forced both women into protective custody during the trial preparation. The case highlighted the double victimization faced by trafficking survivors, first by their captors, then by a society that questioned their credibility and exploited their trauma for entertainment value. After 3 months of testimony and deliberation, the jury delivered guilty verdicts on all major charges against the trafficking conspirators. James Mitchell received life imprisonment without parole for kidnapping, assault, and conspiracy charges. Robert Chin was sentenced to 45 years for his role in identifying and facilitating the capture of victims. Dr. Marcus Webb, as the operations leader, received multiple life sentences plus 200 years. The former police officer who provided inside information was sentenced to 25 years in federal prison. The remaining accomplices received sentences ranging from 15 to 35 years. Michael Torres was captured in Mexico 3 weeks after the verdict and extradited to face charges for insurance fraud and conspiracy. His trial resulted in an additional 20-year sentence. The verdict provided legal closure, but Elena and Rachel knew their psychological recovery would continue for years. The case established important legal precedents for prosecuting complex trafficking operations and protecting victim testimony. Riverside Manor was demolished 6 months after the trial concluded, with the land designated as a memorial park honoring trafficking victims. The building's dark history had made it impossible to find new residents, and the property value had plummeted to nearly nothing. Elena used her settlement money from civil lawsuits against the building's owners to establish a foundation providing psychological support for trafficking survivors. Rachel became a cybersecurity consultant specializing in protecting vulnerable populations from online predators. Both women relocated to different states and adopted new identities to protect their privacy. Their friendship, forged in the crucible of shared trauma, remained one of the few positive outcomes from their ordeal. Other survivors from the trafficking ring began coming forward, creating a network of support that helped additional victims heal and seek justice. The Riverside Manor case fundamentally changed how law enforcement approaches missing person investigations involving adult women. Previously, cases like Elena's might have been classified as voluntary disappearances or suicides without thorough investigation. The case demonstrated how trafficking operations could hide in plain sight within respectable communities, using legitimate businesses and trusted positions to identify and capture victims. New protocols were implemented requiring deeper background checks for building maintenance staff and property managers with master key access. The case also highlighted the role of technology in both facilitating crimes and providing evidence for prosecution. Digital forensics had been crucial in uncovering the trafficking network's communications and financial transactions. Training programs for first responders now include specific modules on recognizing human trafficking indicators and protecting victim testimony from secondary trauma during the legal process. Despite the successful prosecution and rescue of survivors, several aspects of the Riverside Manor case remain unsolved mysteries. Investigators never located all the victims who passed through the trafficking operation, leaving families without closure about their missing loved ones. The full extent of the international network that purchased victims from Webb's organization was never uncovered, suggesting additional criminals remain free. Elena's original stalker, who had been photographing her apartment from across the street, was never identified or apprehended. Some evidence suggested the trafficking ring had political connections that helped them avoid detection for so long, but these leads were never fully pursued. The case files remain open in multiple jurisdictions, with cold case detectives occasionally receiving tips about related disappearances. Elena and Rachel have both stated they believe there are other locations like the basement chamber at Riverside Manor and other victims who haven't been found. Their story serves as a reminder that evil often hides behind ordinary facades and that survival sometimes depends on the courage to speak truth to power, even when that truth is almost too dark to believe.